So the next section of your story is the failure. This is where you have a hardship or a trial take place that is the main trial of your story. You're probably going to have different hiccups and trials along the way of the adventure, but there needs to be one main point where your main character faces the hardest obstacle of all and possibly fails at it. It needs to be something where possibly their pride gets in the way, they have a big ego, or maybe they make a mistake, they have a fatal flaw that comes back to haunt them. Perhaps there's something that you show in the introduction of the story that they struggle with, and that struggle finally comes up and causes them to falter. Whatever it is, you need to have some kind of main failure because it's important that your main character is human and you show that in reality, no one is a perfectionist. You don't want your reader to think that your main character just had it all easy and they perfectly made it through all of this nice and easy. You don't want that to be the case of your story. You want your story to seem real and seem like something that your reader can really relate to. So what is the purpose of the failure? I've already touched on this, but the first purpose is to show your main character is human. You want to show that they are not a perfectionist and they are someone with flaws. And the best way to show that is to take their biggest struggle, have it haunt them, cause maybe little hiccups along the way of the adventure or be prevalent in the beginning of the story. And at one main point of the story, it's going to bite them in the butt and they are going to have a downward spiral. They're going to have a low point where all hope seems lost because maybe they've given up or maybe something has got them into a situation they don't think they can come back from, and your reader is like, how in the world are they going to get out of this situation? This is the worst of all. They're at their lowest point yet. The next purpose of the failure is to show that they still need to learn. It's important to remind your reader that we are all always learning. Every single day we are learning new things, and this is the same for your character. You need to show that they're still learning, they're still progressing, they're still having struggles that come up, and it's okay to show this in the adventure, like I said, but you want to have one main point where it really hits them, that they still haven't overcome an obstacle. And like I said, it should be something that's connected in the intro. When you introduce your main character, maybe you show they have some kind of flaw, but this flaw, even though it comes up a few times, it doesn't really bite them yet until this failure scene. So you want to have one main point where their flaw comes to bite them, or possibly maybe it's not a flaw in them. Perhaps there can be a betrayal scene. There can be a scene where someone comes back to get their revenge on them. Maybe they fall into a trap, or maybe they get overconfident and try to take on the bad guy without any help and they almost die. Whatever it is, you need to have a moment where they realize they still need to learn. They still have a lot to learn. They still have a lot to go. And in that scene, you also want to show that your main character may want to give up. Sometimes we see in stories where main characters think, this was worthless. Why did I even go on this adventure? I should just go home. This is pointless. You want to show that they have lost faith in themselves, and that is what's going to build up to the subsection, the motivation. The motivation takes place right after the failure, and once there's a failure, you need to have something that enlightens your main character, whether it's wise counsel, whether it's motivation from a friend, some encouragement, whatever it is, there needs to be something from the outside, some kind of outside source of encouragement or wisdom or motivation that comes from somebody else that helps your main character get back up on their feet. Now, the reason you want it to be an outside source is because if your main character just comes up with it on their own, it'll just seem like, it'll almost seem like just like an epiphany moment where, you know, they failed and then they're like, maybe I should have done this. Okay, all better. Let me just get back on my high horse and finish the story. You don't want your reader to think that they just solved everything on their own. You want to show that they needed help or that there was some kind of saving moment from others. You could see this in Wizard of Oz where Dorothy is locked up and her friends have to come save her. You could see this in Shrek where Shrek wants to talk to Fiona. He overhears something and skews what it means, so then he thinks that she doesn't love him, and he goes home giving up and saying that it's all over, all hope is lost. And it takes somebody from the outside, it takes a donkey to encourage him and motivate him and set everything straight so that Shrek is re-motivated to go back after Fiona. So that's what you want in your story. You want to have some type of motivation moment, which leads to a salvation arc or a moment of being reborn or a moment of rejuvenation or motivation. This is where your main character takes the advice they received or takes the help they received. They are re-encouraged, they are reignited, the fire is lit, and they are ready to go back and finish what they started. They are not going to give up anymore. So those are all the purposes within your failure and within the subsection, the motivation. Now let's talk about the goal of your failure. The goal of your failure as a writer is to pull on your reader's emotions. You want to rip at their heart. You want to pull them into the story and make them sympathize with your main character. You want them to feel bad for them. You want your reader to hurt in a way. You want to hurt your reader in a sense because you want them to love all this success your main character has had through this adventure. But when this failure strikes, you want them to be like, oh no, what is going to happen? How are they going to get out of this? Like, I feel bad for them. I hurt for them. I hurt because I am them in this story and I don't know how I'm going to get out of this situation. That's how you want to strike your reader, because if you strike your reader like that, they're going to keep reading. They're going to want to know, how do I get out of this situation? How does the main character overcome this hard obstacle, something that's greater than anything they've ever faced? They want to give up. They want to go home. And what is going to happen? So that is how you are going to rejuvenate your reader into continuing reading. And if you can get them to this point, to the failure, and you can connect with them emotionally right here, you don't have to worry about them finishing the rest of the book. They will finish the rest of the book. If you connect with them emotionally right here, they won't want to put this book down. This is where you're going to strike your reader where it hurts, and you're going to make them feel like all hope is lost. And then you're going to reignite that fire by giving them some kind of motivation. Some kind of outside source is going to help them through wise counsel or motivation or encouragement, or something else is going to save them. So just to review, the failure's purpose is to show your main character is human, show that they still need to learn, and have a motivation scene where outside help comes and saves the day. It rescues your main character. There's a salvation arc. They are reborn and they are rejuvenated. And your goal as a writer is to pull on your readers' emotions, pull on their heartstrings, and make them feel tender for your main character, wanting to know how they're going to overcome this hardship. So that is the failure.